Hi, and welcome to another episode of Striking Sparks. I'm Graham Smith, and today I'm joined by Sharon Woodhouse-Wiebe, who is someone I encountered or met for the first time about 8 or so years ago when I had the pleasure of inviting her over to DemonCon, the little convention that I ran in Maidstone a couple of times a year. So we haven't actually caught up since then, so this has been really nice. We normally have a chat for about 15-20 minutes prior to recording the session, but we've just been chatting away for about 50. So that's so that's been really good that we've had a nice catch up, regardless of what is actually said in the session today. So thank you for joining me, Shannon.
Oh yeah, no, my pleasure. Yeah, isn't that the way when you have similar interests, you could talk
Yeah,
forever.
I'm sure that if we didn't have this to record, we could have just finished up just nattering away, indefinitely almost. So,
Mm.
right. So what we're here today is to discuss how role playing benefits our mental health. Now, you're a fairly experienced role player. I think we're probably you've been playing for a reasonable amount of time. So, can you tell me a little bit about how you got into role playing first of all?
I think it's something that I was interested in ever since I was younger. Some of my brother's friends played, but it was just I didn't fall into the same friends groups when I was going through high school or after high school. And I did mention it a couple times within my friends group, and they were not the people who have any interest in it. It's just like, no. I apologize. I have a bit of a cold. Um, but yeah, it wasn't until after my divorce that I was refining myself and trying to be true to what I like and not caring what anyone thought. And I was actively trying to seek out people to play board games or RPGs, anything. And through that, I also a dating site. I randomly ran into a guy online who was really into RPGs and comic books and all these things. So I had started going to conventions before meeting him with one of my friends that was a little bit on the nerdy side, and I
Okay.
sort of dragged him. But yeah, I mean, I think meeting up with my now husband Curtis, we was like right into the fray because that's a big part of his life. So yeah, and I
So
loved it.
so
Yeah.
once you'd kind of like the doorway was open, it was like fully fall through the trap door, and that's it.
Mhm.
We're embracing all of it. So you what games have you been playing? So it's what since you started. What sort of things have systems have you played, or is it too many to mention?
No, no. I mean, I can, I guess, do the greatest hits.
Okay.
Um, and I will go back to like elementary school. That my first thing that I loved, and I didn't even realize was a CRPG, was this Alice in Wonderland CRPG
Okay.
on Commodore 64. I clocked so many hours on that. I was like 7 or 8. They couldn't drag me away from it. So it was an early indication of like,
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
gonna be in this. So, but yeah, I mean, the greatest hits, I guess, over the years. I mean, we started playing 3.2, sorry, 3.5. Is that
Yeah.
what it was?
Yeah.
And I had a good time. I had fun, and then we started doing some more, yeah, just different systems. Little Call of Cthulhu.
Nice.
Did we do that? I think we did that. Curtis is really good at coming up with his own home games, so he tends to mash them up. Some really interesting stuff, and that came a little later. Like we did mashups of like Mage and stuff, his own system. But I think the one that really brought out sort of this narrative, the narrative side for me, was Edge of the Empire,
Okay.
which is the one that we ended up doing a podcast with,
Oh, okay.
because it's the whole thing with the dice where it's not like a levels of failure, levels of success,
Yeah.
and having to come up with that, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
it sort of just expanded that process for me.
And then you say you're recording podcast. You mentioned when we were having a chat beforehand that you recorded the Age of the Empire podcast first of
Mhm.
all. So
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that.
I think that's the one I think of when it really changed the way that I engaged with role playing, because it's the one that was the most regular. So it didn't sort of fall apart because someone couldn't make it. And also it challenged me. And I tend to be a bit of a munchkin, or like just like I break this. Like if I play a CRPG, I'm just thinking about how to break the system. Like I'm just terrible, terrible. But like Curtis is the most patient GM because he has to deal with me and my friend Jordan. We get together and we just destroy everything. So I can't help it.
This is your thing. It's like, I've got a new system. I've got a new game. How can I break the DM stroke the system? This is
Yeah, it's everything I play. It's like
okay.
Can't play it right. So yeah, I mean, this one forced me to do some things outside of my wheelhouse, which is breaking the system.
And then you went on to do after the podcast. Was that both and Boff and Banter? Was that you said that was called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You went on to do a Twitch cast with D&D Fifth. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about that as well, please?
Yeah, I mean, we had been playing quite a few different campaigns with different groups of people with Fifth, and just sort of exploring the system, the narrative, like how far can we push this narrative, the narrative side of it. And that really appealed to Curtis, being a very, he always promotes that with the players and sort of giving them free reign a lot, right? And yeah, we came with the idea of having this group of women because it was a space that there weren't a lot of women in. I think all of my campaigns were all male dominated at the time. I think I was the only woman, and which is weird because it was weird. So now it's shifted. Like everybody that I play with, there's definitely women in there.
Yeah, I remember you. So you were recording this just after we'd met. So it's probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I'd guess.
Yeah, over 8 years ago.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. At the time, I think Critical Role burst onto the scene roundabout then, and that was kind of like the first time I think, other than the guilds, that we'd really seen a female presence in anything sort of role play related. So for you to do a group that was all female, that was pretty groundbreaking. Okay, so the group that you've got, can you tell me a little bit about that group, a little bit about the interactions between you and the rest of the players?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted some players that had never been exposed to any RPGs before. We thought that was such a great way to start because it would hopefully encourage other people. Like that, some people have this sort of idea it's an impenetrable like wall of having to read all these stats, and they just aren't interested before they even start. So to take away that sort of at that time that misconception.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't want it to be, because it was a all-female group, that we were just going to play it, I don't know, pretend, like try to be like how, maybe Munchkin college dudes play, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, don't have any preconceived notions going in. Play it the way you want to play it. There's no right or wrong. Just be open, And I think we succeeded in that. I think we were that way. No one had any preconceived notions about what was right or wrong. Just flowed with whatever, and it was fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So what was the highlight? What was your big achievement from that? What was the thing that you really got most out of that? I know you mentioned when we were having a chat prior. So if you can share what you shared with me earlier, that would be amazing.
Yeah, there's a few moments in there that I really still reflect on. So the first thing that blew my mind is that people would want to watch people like us play. Like, why? I just couldn't believe it. And people did. And so we formed an online community, which was really fun. And people are drawing pictures of the moments. I was like, whoa, that just blew my mind that people could share this story. It wasn't just us. Like, we were sharing with other people. And I was like, what? Why is this happening? I'm so confused. And and then moments in the game that were, I found that I have such a stage fright. And there's been times where I've literally walked off stage because I couldn't present a speech. Like in school where you have to do those speeches. They're like, I can't hear you. And then I'm like, I'm going to faint or throw up and I leave. It's so bad.
Right.
So it's something I try to challenge myself with, but I don't know if I'll fully ever get over. So I would, every time the cameras are rolling, I'm like, oh no, just get so panicky. But then I found I could focus on the game. So that allowed me to get over that.
Yeah.
And I could be more immersed, and maybe it made me even be more immersed. Reflecting, I don't know, because I didn't want to think about what was out there.
I'm shutting out this by focusing so much on the game that, you know what, that's the only thing that matters right now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so that is us basically, you know, your amygdala's kicked in big time beforehand, and your cognitive brain has basically said, how can we deal with this? Like, just concentrate on that, and there's nothing else there, and shut it all away. So, so what was the thing that you got most out of this? What was the thing that, you know, by playing, or just not just this session, but, you know, games in general? What is the thing that, you know, your most rewarding thing from playing a role-playing game?
Yeah, I think I initially was thinking about it, and I think it's just those moments where you're laughing so hard, like you can't even breathe, and everyone just like, we have to take a time out because we're laughing for 20 minutes. Like, it's just so, and I still think about those moments to this day. Like I can still say the lines that were said,
right?
Because it's so funny. You know, you had to be there, but we were all there. We were in this imaginary world, and we all experienced.
And even more so, if you've been sharing it with an external community, they're in on the jokes as well. So it's almost like when you're watching the regular sketch comedy shows where they, you know, they use the same lines. And that's like, so the anticipation of those lines is kind of like you're laughing before the laugh even comes up. So if you're sharing that thing and you're reminiscing, you're getting the benefit from it again. One of the lovely things I found out whilst I was training to be a psychotherapist, and I really found it hard to believe when I was told this, was that our brain can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. And I was like, well, that can't be right. You know, I'm an intelligent guy. I can tell what's real and what's not. That's, you know. And it wasn't until I did my training where we did some of the exercises with scanners on that would represent what was going on in the brain. And we got to see that when we're, for example, experiencing trance, part of what I do involves psychotherapy backed up with hypnosis. And part of that hypnosis involves a relaxation process, rather like your meditation and guided visualization exercises.
Yeah.
And when we're going through this, the parts, for example, if we're talking about walking downstairs, the parts of the brain, even though we're sitting in a chair relaxing, that control the motor skills light up as we're talking about walking down these things. As we're talking about seeing stuff, the visual cortex lights up, even though we're sitting there with our eyes closed. So, you know, our brain not being able to tell the difference and reliving it. So if you're reliving those memories again, you're getting the benefit of them a time. Even when you're just remembering that a time that you laughed, you're still experiencing the same chemical release that you got that first time when you laughed, you know, en masse as a group. So hugely beneficial. Hugely beneficial.
Definitely. Yeah.
So where's your gaming sitting at now? What sort of where are you as far as how often do you get the game, or you know, what's going on in your gaming life presently?
Well, we've taken a bit of a break, especially moving overseas and whatnot. So we're not gaming as regularly as we used to with our cruise in Canada, but we are coming back to it, especially winters. I currently live in Stockholm, Sweden, and winters are dark and very long.
Okay.
So that's the time to keep everybody indoors and get around the table. Yeah, so we're moving into that space again because we're starting a company that is about group creatives being able to do some group storytelling together again. But we want to get around the table and want to start hashing some stories out. So I'm excited about that.
So talking about the creative process. So you know, it sounds like that's an important thing for you. Can you tell me a little bit, how you sort of take on that either as a player, or do you run games as well, or are you just as a player?
I don't, my partner's really encouraged me to do that over the years. He bought me this DM guide. I have this special book. He got me is it 1,000-Year-Old Vampire? It's like a self-guided. So what is it called? 101
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well.
RPG,
Yeah.
which he ended up doing. I still haven't done it yet. I don't know. It's not something that appealed to me immediately. Some of the players of the D20 Babes, they went on to be their own, they right away wanted to be a GM
Right.
and they took to it. Me, I just like going along for the ride. I don't know why it hasn't appealed to me to run my own games. Maybe it's something I will. I should try it once, at least.
As a forever GM,
Mhm.
it's like I'm actually currently looking to play as a player for probably the first time in, I don't know, 20 years, because I'm
Yeah.
always the guy that finishes up running them. And it's just
Yeah.
that fact that, the fact you can just come up, focus on the creating the persona of your one dude or dudette, as the case may be.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I quite fancy that because there's so much effort, what goes on behind the scenes for a DM,
Mm.
for most of it to get railroaded,
Yeah.
and you've done this, and I've planned for this eventuality, and then the players go
Yeah.
off, and we're just going to go everywhere but where you've
Yeah.
got the stuff
Yeah.
for. So the idea of just being
Yeah.
able to focus on that one aspect would be
Yeah.
nice. I have to be honest.
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite character?
That I played?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I have a few actually. I should say my main character from D20 Babes because that
Okay.
was probably my most hashed out character, one of my most hashed out characters. And she was half goblin. I don't think it was ever revealed. Um, and just acted in a very specific way that was very predictable by everybody, but led to some funny moments. But I think actually some of my characters in the one-shot games we play. So one of my favorite systems, because I don't think I ever answered that, sorry,
No,
is
we had the greatest hit was, and then
the greatest
we
hits.
just went Age of Empires and 3.5, and then
Yeah,
we were done.
sorry, I tend to do that. Is I love Fiasco.
Okay. I don't.
And so
So you just mentioned one I don't know. So you're gonna have to
Oh,
elaborate a
Fiasco,
little.
yeah. Fiasco, I have the best time playing that. And we use it for lots of things, like just storylines, and things. But we even used Fiasco with the D20 Babes. We mashed it with Fifth because initially we used the system that you create relationships between each other. So we had preset relationships before we even went in
Okay.
to start our first session. And we did that sort of through like a Fiasco thing. So Fiasco is sort of like a relationship simulator, if that makes sense. But it's like a Coen Brothers film. So it's set up like a film where you have a turn. It's basically acts, and
Okay.
also it's relationships between each other. So each scene between each player, everybody votes on if they get what they want out of that scene or if they fail. And you kind of want to fail because you fail spectacularly. It's like everyone is like desolate at the end. It's great. But it's spectacular failures. And it's so funny at times, and you just make the most bizarre storylines. But I think what it is I call it the RPG bait, because you can get people that who have no interest in ever playing an RPG, have a lot of preconceived notions to play Fiasco because they think that they're just doing an acting thing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're a
Yeah.
little interested in acting, a little interested in story, but they don't know that they're doing a pretty heavily, it's an RPG, like a full-on RPG, right? It's a very narrative RPG, which is hard for people sometimes. So,
I used to love this, and so similar thing with the
mm-hmm,
shop. So where our shop was situated was in the middle of a shopping centre, and on a
mm-hmm,
weekend we were allowed to put tables out the front of the shop in the concourse, and play board games. So
mm-hmm,
it used to be great seeing people that clearly were not, oh, well, if you said to someone, oh, do you want to play board games? They'd be like, oh, no, I couldn't be doing that. And we'd have a lot of the games where people would kind of get sucked in.
Mm.
as they were walking past. Sort of have a quick look to see what was going on, hear what the interactions were, and then
Yeah.
finish it getting drawn in and wanting to contribute. So it is
Yeah.
that thing of, if you can get people, it's like stealth introduction.
Totally. Yeah. We've done it. We're like, oh, you guys want to play a board game? Well, it's not really a board game.
Yeah.
It's a great introduction. And next thing you know, they're doing full scenes and they're like in it, It's great. But yeah, some of the characters that have come out of that game are just wow. Like we had a Deep South Basset Hound Society that were show dogs, and murder ensued, jealousy, infidelity. Like it was like Desperate Housewives with Basset Hounds. Like it was hilarious. I had the funnest time. So,
Yeah, so there was a slightly stunned expression on my face there for anyone who's watching this. I was like, okay. It's like, I'm just going to I'm going to say Shunies because that's the dog, anthropomorphic dogs in Pathfinder. So,
no,
But
it's
these
not
were
just anything. It was like we had show dogs and we had this rivalry between the show dog owners, and it was
blinding.
nuts. Yeah.
So, one of the things I ask all my guests on Striking Sparks is, can you think of your most favorite moment, stroke heroic moment? That moment, that moment that was like your wow factor that popped the rest of the players and got them kind of like taking that step back and or the biggest laugh. You said that you can remember all the moments. Is there one that you can share with us that you go, yeah, that was a moment that really made a difference?
I honestly cannot reflect on everyone at the table clapping for me or anything. I think if I focus too hard on them, I'd probably stop what I was doing. I'm like, what am I, like get a little, but but I can think of a moment where I actually allowed myself to do a serious scene, and I was too late in my role playing to, like it took me too long to get to that place. I'm a little ashamed of that, but it's just sort of levity, like everything's funny all the time. And it's, yeah, for somebody like Curtis that puts a lot of time into the story and everything, that's a big payback for him to see the players actually allow themselves to really play. And I'm not an actor. I don't channel any, like I can't do that, right? It's really hard for me to fully do that kind of thing. And I think the first time I did that, and I really had a very, serious emotional connection with the scene. And it's a scene outside of my personal life experience. Like obviously it's this fantasy world, right? Between my brother and how would this character really act. And it was a very emotional moment. It sort of flipped a switch that allowed me to do that more often in the games and really take something away from them. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's my most heroic moment, because it broke through the walls of allowing myself to dramatically play out a scene without being like, is this cheesy? Is this, like all that sort of self-doubt? No, I'm in the moment. I'm really like, this is how my character would act. This is really what's going on. Right.
I mean, this is one of the things that I love about my group therapy sessions. I mean, yeah, there's half an hour of, therapy. It's therapy light, in all fairness, compared to what I do in my one-to-one sessions. But in the game itself, it's almost like, as I said, we were chatting earlier, as kids, we're encouraged to play.
Yeah,
we're encouraged to kind of throw ourselves headlong into everything, whether it be, at a really young age, scribbling away and drawing and learning basic skills, or playing in recess and learning to connect with people. But, as adults, we kind of step away from that for a while. So actually putting yourself in a position where there is no risk involved, other than the pressures you put on yourself, to play out these things, it does allow you to, even though you're playing a persona, you're developing something in yourself. It's huge. And as we're doing that, we're forming those those neural pathways in the brain that then allow us to put those into practice in the outside world. I mean, I've been working with people over the last few weeks and seeing the development of those people, hearing about things that have gone on with them outside of the gaming is huge. And the power of play is something that I think people kind of forget to embrace. It's all about making money and taking the time, and being sensible, and there's all the sort of like things that have got to be done with life. There's so many pressures to
It's
be a
also,
certain way, and role
yeah, I'm
playing
kind
just
of, oh,
steps us
sorry.
out. So it just steps us outside.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I mean, like reflecting on that, there's so much is fed to us now too, as far as story and creativity. And children, like, they're playing video games where the story's fed to them, where they're watching shows where the story's fed to them. Maybe they're not reading as much, and that does require a little bit of imagery projected, like they come up with it themselves. But there's not much, except for the free play outside, and they get less of that. So, and adults, when do we do it? We hardly do it.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I with me with role playing, I mean, I have a couple of sessions a week. I have a session a month around the table, and it's a case of the way that I perform in life after a session is far better because I've already got all the chemicals I need. I've had the oxytocin hit from the social interaction. I've had the dopamine hit from the hitting that 20, or even the oxytocin again from laughing at that one when as a DM and the players are up against it, and then suddenly it's like oh really, and there are all those moments. So my serotonin levels are up here when I finish a session. I go about the day. If I do anything creative or even just, trying to be productive, I'm far more efficient finishing a session and moving forward. So it is hugely beneficial. Right, because we can clearly natter for England or Canada, I guess in your case, or Sweden, depending on where you're looking at where you are. So do you want to round us off with something? So if you had to say what you feel is the biggest deal about role playing for you, what is it if you had to recommend it to someone else, how would you go about your elevator pitch at recommending the game or playing role playing games to somebody that had never maybe considered playing at all? You didn't know that one was coming, and it was there.
No,
was
this is a tough one.
Rabbit in the headlights.
Because I've really tried to get people into it that just won't. So I'm not very good at this. Okay, I'm not the best salesman, but I'm gonna say this might sound this is probably overly dramatic, but I think there's something deep, and I can't explain it, but integral to humans that when we share story, and we shared story around the campfire, eons ago, and we felt magic in those days. Or we shared song, which is a form of story. Or we shared poetry.
Yeah.
Right, and we don't have any opportunities to group tell it, and it's a way to connect on a deeper level. Like you're sharing someone else's brain because you're making your scenario. It's a scenario you're creating, birthing into the world really together as a group. So I think you've explained the chemicals really well, but I mean, I guess you can sum it up that there's like this also a deep rooted magic in it too, like that, this between us. And we come away feeling better, and we come away feeling more connected, and maybe to people outside as well. Like there's a benefit that you can break down through science, or you're just like, it feels good. It's something that.
Well, do you know what? I think I could come up with loads of scientific stuff, and that says it far better. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been lovely to catch up. As I said, we finished up what normally takes about 45 minutes. We've been an hour and a quarter all told. So that's cool. And I say it's going to be lovely to catch up with Curtis in the near future as well. So thank you so much for joining me today. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.